Welcome back to Tech, Tesla and Trends. Tonight, I am thinking about the Boring Company. The Boring Company is one that began in a less than auspicious way, just simply an idea and a frustration with traffic. So I guess that could be auspicious in some ways, but and also named by one of Elon's ex-wives. So it's it's got an origin story for sure, and an overall mission to make transport not so mind-numbingly destructive. I personally look forward to seeing how well this works out as they continue to build out the Las Vegas Convention Center loops out to hotels and other various destinations, and eventually out to the airport. So there's obviously some opportunities here. There's lots of other cities that have, on principle, decided that they would like to have a boring tunnel system, and in principle, the depth of those tunnels could go to multiple levels beyond what we currently are thinking about. Contrary to what road systems are, you have the ability to go at multiple levels down, and there's no limit. Well, I shouldn't say there's no limit. There is a limit, but from a practical perspective, there isn't a limit for the needs of our current transportation system. And I think that our current transportation system is towards the upper end of what might ultimately be required. Not to say that we're not going to have more vehicles, but I believe that FSD will curtail the number of vehicles that is required for the use of individuals. Because as the popularity of ride shares and of other technologies comes into play, not only the FSD aspect of it and going underground, but there's also companies that are vying to do so overhead. I'm not really a big fan of seeing that much air traffic, and I think the FAA would definitely have a lot to say about that. But ultimately, there is a place for a overhead component. But from a standpoint of the Boring Company and traffic, it really does have potential to eliminate the need for so many miles of 16 lanes across. That's just mind-numbing, and the insanity that goes on there every day is truly spectacular carnage in some instances. So, and it's finely orchestrated as it is, it's still just there needs to be a better way, and there really is a better way if you're able to break it down into more directional tubes that are going more specific places underground. It does have its benefits. Now, what else could you use a Boring Company tube for? Well, they've looked at the utilidor concept where they're running utilities in them. That's highly effective use, I believe. Well, if you're using that for utilities, what's to stop you from also utilizing it for, say, growing food or some other need or storage? And you might think, why would you grow food underground? You could utilize the solar and battery components that Tesla makes to expand the usefulness of a Boring Company whole, and literally utilize some of the same technology that is being built by Elon Musk with his Square Roots group, and begin to make a sustainable ecosystem underground, utilizing the vast power of solar energy that's available and stored into batteries to maintain that lighting system or all the other aspects of that. Now, do we have the full capability to do that today? Not really. This is more of a 10 or 15 years, probably 20 years ahead sort of look. But I do believe this is something that we would actually want to do on the moon or Mars. We could transport a boring machine to each of those locations. If you look at the diameter on a starship and the proposed diameter for future or for the boring companies' machines, there is the potential to send them in multiple pieces up to the moon or to Mars, and away we would then begin to tunnel. This has the potential to definitely enable more of that multiplanetary spread of humanity. And it will be necessary on the moon and Mars in particular to be underground, especially in the early years, because of the radiation that exists or the lack of an atmosphere and that magnetosphere that protects us from the sun's radiation, which during this period of time is on an increase. But looking at the potentials for the Boring Company, it does have a distinct ability to increase the number of miles of road underground or of habitation or utility corridors that would ultimately be highly beneficial for our overall society. Nobody particularly likes to put transmission lines above ground, but they're expensive to bury. And if we had existing utility corridors that were built that way, you could actually bring them underground. Now, there would have to be obvious safety margins and things like that that's going on, but it ultimately does open up opportunities for reclaiming the surface for the ecological opportunities and removing the technological requirements of society. And I think this is one of the more encouraging aspects of the future of the Boring Company, not only on foreign or on distant planets and moons, but here on Earth. Some food for thought tonight, and I hope that you have some other thoughts on where the Boring Company could go. I'd love to hear your comments on those, where you think the Boring Company might go over the next 20 years or 30 years. Let's compare notes. For now, have a great night, and we'll talk to you in the comments below.